I don't know if I said Disney twice. Hey everybody, welcome back to Cinematically, the series where we talk about movies that I may have missed for whatever reason. And today we are talking about Disney Plus, or actually Disney's movie, which is Frozen 2. Now this one actually came out early to Disney Plus because of the pandemic. They decided to release it early onto that platform, although it did already come out in theaters as well as have a physical release. They decided to wait or push it forward rather, because of the pandemic, to give something for people to watch at home, and of course subscribe and watch Disney Plus. So because I have Disney Plus and I haven't seen Frozen 2, this is the perfect opportunity to watch it. Now, a little bit of a caveat to this: I had absolutely no interest in watching Frozen 2. I felt like the first Frozen was still being shoved down my throat through various media that I really didn't have any interest whatsoever. I could have gone without it seeing forever, but the first teaser trailer did have me very interested based on visuals alone. I didn't know much about the story, but it did captivate me there. So actually my wife started watching it first. I ended up watching it later because she was more of a fan than I was. But I ended up watching it because of a couple of key scenes that she felt like were funny surrounding Olaf or Kristoff. They thought it was very funny. So I decided, hey, why not just watch the whole movie together? So we decided to go ahead and do that. And I actually quite enjoyed it. I would say even more than the first one. And I think where we're going to start off here is the story, and it's just pure epicness in terms of point number one, because I thought it was way more awesome than the first one. The visuals were way better, but I did think that the storyline did, and maybe this is because I've been watching it, it reminded me of Avatar because of the earth, fire, air, and water type of elements to it. But there was this moment very early in the beginning where they kind of talk about those elements, and right away it just snapped in, obviously, The Last Airbender. So I thought that was pretty funny. Obviously it has nothing to do with that. I think just the connotation alone is what made me have that association, but I had a lot of fun with it regardless. It's way more epic, like I mentioned before. The scale of it is way better. The storyline is actually really interesting. Not quite as boring, I think, as the first one, where it's just, oh, have these abilities now. How do I conceal it but also be myself type of thing. This one, it had brought a whole new element to outside of Elsa and Anna's story and Arendelle as a whole, where we're now dealing with elemental characters and different aspects of nature that affect and essentially give Elsa kind of her powers in a way. So how it all interacts is probably one of the most interesting parts. It keeps you interested from beginning to end, and I was just constantly wondering where this was going, because I didn't really feel like it was having like the first movie where I didn't really know where it was going to go. There was a big twist with Hans, but really there wasn't a big place for it to go other than, oh, Elsa gets accepted or rejected because of her powers. Obviously she gets accepted, and so this one, it just was like, I don't know where it's going to go. It could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. How's this going to end? And there were a lot of twists and turns in this that I felt like was making me and drawing me into wanting to know more about this story, and it was way better than the first one. Next up, with point number two, has to be the visuals. Now, the first Frozen was very good, obviously, in terms of visuals, but Disney is impeccable, their animation department, in making things look photorealistic. In terms of visuals so far, I think this one has to take the cake. The water is absolutely stunning. I think, if not as good, slightly better than Moana. And then they add all the other elements with fire. The fire part, I think, was maybe their weakness because they made it more pinkish and purplish rather than actual like flame colors. I think they did that more artistic choices. But I did feel like that was probably the weakest point. The snow and ice, looks very much similar to the other one. The forest, however, the forest elementals, the rocks, the rock people, rock giants, whatever you want to call them, looked fantastic. You could feel the textures in this movie that I don't think I've ever seen before in any animation. I mean, there's been always leveling up as far as Disney goes, but I think this one hands down takes the cake in terms of visuals. That alone is worth watching the movie. If you don't want to watch it for the story or care about Disney movies, if you like animation and seeing like the top of the top in terms of how far animation can be pushed to be photorealistic, check out Frozen 2. Now, in terms of my last points, which I'm going to kind of combine 3 and 4 into one mishmash, is that it was both better and worse than the original. Now, it's better in terms of humor. I felt like Olaf was way more tolerable. He had a ton of jokes. He did this whole sort of recap of the first movie, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. I think that Kristoff's sort of solo song was interesting. I thought it was kind of funny. I don't know if it was meant to be funny, but it came across in a sort of boy bands type of way, which was really, I found funny. I don't know if anybody else did. But in the way that it's worse is that I felt like a lot of the songs weren't as good as the original. I don't know if that's because the original one was just a little bit more catchy, but this one only had maybe one or two songs that I felt like this was worth being a movie, or like worth being in the movie in terms of it trying to be a musical. Everything else just sort of fell to the wayside. It wasn't necessary to make it part of the movie in terms of the music. The first one, it felt ingrained in itself. Like it felt like it was needed. If you took the music away, it wouldn't be the same movie. This one, if you take the music away, I think it might be better, or if you kept it to maybe just 1 to 2 songs, it would be plenty. But if they go like 5, 6 songs, sometimes it's just a little bit too much. You're like, okay, let's wrap this up and get back into the story because that stuff's interesting. How this song incorporated with that, not so much. So overall, my thoughts on Frozen 2. I think it was better than the original if I had to compare 1 to 2. If I wanted a more musical type of movie, I would say 1 is better, but everything else, I think 2 takes the cake. It's funnier, it has better action, it has better story. Everything is just better, except for that tiny little bit of having some music that maybe just wasn't necessary. But I want to know what you guys think. Did you like Frozen 2? I don't think I reviewed the first one, if memory serves, but I do have some other Disney and Pixar stuff right up here if you want to check that out. While you're there, also be sure to check out the other Cinematically series that I have where I talk about my latest one, which was Detective Pikachu. I have a bunch of lives that I want to put out into the world. I had so much fun on my first live. Thank you if you were there. A whole bunch of new stuff. So make sure you guys are subscribed. Click the button down there. Hit the thumbs up if you like this video. Yeah, that's really all I have for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.